With the development of trade, the Sumerians invented the concept of the contract. Cylindrical stone seals were carved and finally engraved with a negative bas-relief. When a contract was entered into, or goods needed to be identified, the cylinder was rolled in clay. The mark it left on the clay sealed the transaction. That was also how the Sumerians, who held contracts in great esteem, began to make laws. Very few legal texts from the Sumerian period have been found, but in the early 20th century, in the Persian city of Sus, archaeologists discovered the stone of Hammurabi, king of Babylon. It had been seized as a trophy by the Elamites, who went on a rampage through Mesopotamia in the 12th century BC. Hammurabi had the legal code that bears his name drawn up in 1694 BC. It enshrined all of Sumeria's laws, and all 282 articles were carved on the stone. They mostly relate to aspects of everyday life, to commercial transactions, marriages, and inheritances. As a judge, the king ordered investigations, protected the people from abuse by officials, and oversaw great public works. The Code of Hammurabi proves that the Sumerians were precursors in many areas. On the back of the stone, Article 196 warns an eye for an eye, a principle repeated in the Law of Moses. To build their Garden of Eden, the Sumerians roamed the world in search of commodities they lacked. For example, there was no wood in the Mesopotamian desert. To get this rare commodity, which they used exclusively as a building material, the Sumerians ventured to Syria, Turkey, and the mountains of Lebanon. Today, cedar forests are few and far between. After the Sumerians, all the ancient civilizations used cedar, and gradually they cut down almost all the cedar trees. Legend has it that some cedars are over 4,000 years old and grew in civilizations now vanished. They could testify to the efforts of the Sumerians. Bas-reliefs found in temples show Sumerian loggers felling 100-year-old cedars and loading them onto their ships before sailing down the Euphrates. These expeditions lasted several months and show the enormous achievement of a people living in a hostile environment. Some discoveries made by the Sumerians 5,000 years ago are still used by Iraqis today. Tar, for instance, is used for waterproofing boat hulls and sealing the roofs of houses. This is Hate, a small town on the banks of the Euphrates, 600 kilometres from the Sumerian cities. Tar and sulphur erupt from the earth here. Tar floats, and archaeologists believe the Sumerians could have collected tar from the riverbanks as it floated down the Euphrates. The people of Haiti still collect tar by methods that haven't changed for thousands of years. Before taking the tar out of the water, you have to coat your hands in sand. The Sumerians, too, used tar for waterproofing boats, but they mainly used it for sealing bricks and for waterproofing the foundations of public buildings. This precaution reflected a major event in their lives: floods. George Smith, a 19th century Londoner who studied Sumerian tablets in the British Museum, deciphered some legends about devastating floods.
The wickedness of men so displeased Enlil, the supreme god, that he decided to swallow man up in a huge flood. Enki, protector of men, pleaded with him, but in vain. So Enki decided to preserve a remnant. He asked Zusudra to build an ark and to take animals in pairs on board with him. After 6 days and nights of storm, the world was submerged. On the 7th day, the storm abated. Zusudra released a dove that, finding no resting place, returned to him. On the 8th day, he released a raven that never returned. Mankind was saved.
The gods instilled fear and respect. They symbolized the Sumerians' mistrust of nature. Each divinity in their pantheon played a role. Each one ruled over a city. Enlil, god of wind, ruled over air and earth in the city of Nippur. Enki, god of water and the world, was worshipped in Eridu. Udu, god of justice and truth, was worshipped in Lhasa. Inanna, known to the Babylonians as the fertility goddess Ishtar, was worshipped in Uruk. She inspired both love and war. To the Greeks, she was Aphrodite, and to the Romans, Venus. The smooth curves of this alabaster statue reflect the skill of the Sumerian artists. Their art and their religious devotion are highlighted by the statue's finish and their expressive faces.